You are now watching a clip from the Inspired by show. You can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or listen on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to head over there, leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and follow the show. Tess, I find your story fascinating because there's been, whether or not listeners can tell it yet, there's been a lot of similarities in your experiences with, moving around and striving for more. And it's interesting you mentioned about your athletic background.
Yes.
Because we train up a lot of people on entrepreneurship, and it's usually the athletes or someone with a competitive background that are the most successful.
Interesting.
And from what I've learned from my research of interviewing lots and lots of people and mentoring thousands of people on it, is it's the element of being able to handle the rejection.
Yes.
And I find a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the rejection because they don't like being told no, whether it's in a sale, whether it's in a job, whether it's in a client. How would you say your experience as an athlete and training in there has helped you on that entrepreneurship roller coaster?
Well, it's definitely helped me in a number of ways. I would say one of the things that it's definitely helped me as a bedrock is a discipline. Because I was very privileged to be competing for Northern Ireland, and I got into the Commonwealth Games kind of squad. And so to get to that level, you need to be, doing a lot of training, and you have to have the discipline. I was training 6 days a week, 5 of those days twice a day. And as I said already, with guys that were really pushing me quite hard. So the discipline, definitely, because you kind of have to get yourself back on track really quickly. And when that's in your DNA, okay, I didn't win that race, or I came second and I thought I was going to get a PB and I didn't. So that's like kind of part of the normal process of learning. And then you sit down, in my case then, was with your coach and go, right, what have I learned? What did I need to do differently? What was the strategy that didn't work? We said we would go in the second lap. I went too early, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of putting the laser on, right, let's review that. Let's learn from it. And now we need to get back into training for the next one. So that discipline of going again was definitely part of it. Don't get me wrong. There were some races I really felt knocked sideways by. And some lovely ups and, some real kind of great moments, and seeing some fantastic athletes, but there was definitely a few big knocks. And to the rejection piece, so the way I enter conversations with clients and potential clients, and this is just what works in my mind, so I'm not saying this will work for everyone. I think about going in to have a great conversation. I don't think about, right, I'm going in to sell or I'm going in to pitch. I genuinely start from a place of, let's really understand where they're at. And I think that comes through in the way I listen and the way we have the conversation. And then very naturally, it becomes very obvious, is this the right moment? Is this the right moment for the client? Is there needs such that I can help with? And it might not be now, it might not be today. And so I think that's how I hold the rejection. It's maybe not at this point, but we don't need to cut off the relationship just because the need isn't there. And so again, I'll come back to keeping that warm. And one of the things, and I think it comes back to community again, one of the things that I know I'm good at is I'm good at staying in touch with people. I just keep nurturing the relationship. And that's really served me well from a very genuine place.
Yeah.
I really care.
That's also the long-term piece that you mentioned, because, when you're doing athletics, I mean, I'm definitely not an athlete. Please don't ask me to run any meters, let alone half of what you can run. But it's not that, there's a phrase, you can't run a marathon overnight.
Yes.
Whereas I think a lot of people come into the entrepreneur space, or even a leadership space, let's be honest, a lot of leaders are promoted into leadership roles from my experience before the training, before the skills. And they expect themselves and they're expected by others to run before they can walk.
Yeah.
Now, for that, which I think is fascinating, what you've shared is about that long-term focus. And when I run events, when I have people on my podcast, when I'm speaking to people, when I'm selling to people, I'm the same. I'm like, it might not be a no, it's a not now. And it might be a, let's just have fun with this person. That's how I approach it, is like, how can I have fun with the person? How can I play with them? How can I enjoy the moment and help them? Now, you obviously work with a lot of leaders in your industry, and you've been in business for quite some time. What have you learned from the leaders that you've either coached or you've been around? What wisdom or what inspiration have you had from them on your journey?
Oh my God, there's loads. And as we said earlier, I quite often find myself sitting opposite a coaching client going, I am talking to myself. This is the version of me that needs the coaching as much as the person that's there.
Yeah.
And I often find that the coachees, the clients show up where we've got as much learning to do as them. And so there's a bit about being humble, I think, in there. What else have I learned? Oh my goodness, there's so many things. Patience. This striving individual who locks onto a long-term target, i.e. me. I've learned along the way that sometimes you have to go sideways before you can go up. And that's as relevant in my career, as in working, in organizations. I moved from marketing exec to a regional sales manager to a sales planner to a logistics expert before I could go up. And really kind of, being humble enough to hear the feedback and recognize where you still have some edges to work on. So that's definitely a learning. And that's as relevant in our entrepreneurial journey. We might be, for example, we may be very comfortable to reach out to clients and potential clients, but how we show up in there might be the bit of work that we need to do. We can go to one extreme or the other. We can be too bubbly and energetic and not attending to, does that style work for them? So we could be in our own bubble. And actually, how do we find that place of being emotionally intelligent enough to go, what's right for this client? What's right for this conversation? And how do I tailor and adjust, as opposed to, I'm going to be me, whatever. Well, the version of me, whatever, might not be right for them. And so being able to kind of be humble enough, tune in and figure out the nature of my conversation might not be different, but the amount of energy and the way I bring it might need to be fundamentally different.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something about patience, something about being intelligent enough to tune into how I and members of my team show up. And I think that the other one is, I mentioned before, is thinking longer term rather than each conversation doesn't need to be a deal breaker. Because we put too much pressure on ourselves.
Don't we? Yeah. And there's so much stuff outside of our comfort zone as well, or even outside of our control.
Yes.
We can have the best plan in the world. We joked off screen that how much planning we both are, and we're very good in structure and organisation. But we can have the best plans in the world, and then something totally unexpected can come over and change it all. And actually, we've all lived and breathed that in the last few years. 23rd of March, 2020. We both talked about this. It's COVID. Lockdown for both of us. I was running in-person events. You were running corporate training in person, as a leadership in businesses, both of which overnight vanished.